Now we look at the transportation problem. So there are three methods in transportation, that is northwest corner method, the first method, then we have least cost method, then we have Vogel's approximation method. One by one we will see each of these problems. So here we are going to calculate the transportation cost for the given table. So in this problem we have three factories from where goods have to be transported to 4 warehouses. The purpose of transportation problem is to minimize the total cost of transportation. So this transportation cost may be transporting goods from factories to warehouses or wholesalers to retailers likewise. So in that context we have to minimize the cost of transportation. So the first method what we are going to discuss is the northwest corner method. So the data is provided in the table where there are three factories and 4 warehouses are there. From 3 factories there is some output which is given at the end of each row. We'll see it in the table, and in each box, or which we call each cell, the cost from one factory to each warehouse is given. Then we have to use this method to make allocation. That means from which factory how many units should go to which warehouse. There is no such hard and fast rule that we need to send all the units from one factory only or to only one warehouse. That means units can be sent from one factory to various warehouses, or units can be supplied to one warehouse from various factories. Just this in this problem we have supply equals to the demand. So we call this as a balanced problem. Balanced problem is a problem where demand and supply are equal. Supply is also known as availability, and similarly demand is also known as requirement. That means the supply from factories are given under the column supply, and the requirement at various warehouses is given in the last row where we find demand. And here in the cells, in the corner of each box, some values are there like this: 5, 8, 10, 13, Likewise, these values are cost of transportation for one unit from that particular or corresponding factory to that warehouse. For example, here in this problem, if you see the transportation cost from factory 1 to W1 for 1 unit of transportation, it is 5 rupees, and from factory 1 to warehouse 2, it is 8 rupees per unit, and similarly F1 to W3 it is 10 rupees, and F1 to W4 it is 13 rupees. Now when we look at this table, we have the total availability or supply from factory 1 is 50 units, from factory 2 it is 80 units, from factory 3 it is 60 units. And the requirement or demand at W1 or warehouse 1 is 40 units, 35 units at W2, 85 units at W3 and 30 units at W4. From both sides, if we sum up them, you will get 190. That means the total supply is equal to 190, and similarly demand is equal to 190. That is the reason we call this as balanced problem. Now we start allocating the units. So since this method is a northwest corner method, that means the units should be allocated on the basis of direction of the cell. Here it is north, this is north, this is east, this is south, this is west. Now, based on the direction, we can say this direction. This is northwest corner. This is north, this is west. So this is northwest corner. That means while making allocation, first we have to identify the northwest corner cell and make the allocation. It is not a scientific method, but it is the first method which was made up or which was created. So we want to know. So here in this, if we are looking at this table, this direction, you can see the cursor, right? And based on this cursor, this is the entire table. In this entire table, this cell is the most northwest corner cell. So based upon the availability and based upon the demand, we have to allocate maximum possible number of units to this cell. So here the demand at W1 is 40 and the supply is 50 units from factory 1. So we can supply all the 40 units which are required at W1. So the allocation is complete which is required. That means we don't allocate for W1 again because the requirement is satisfied. Now, once the requirement is satisfied, we cannot make allocation to this cell F2W1 or this cell F3W1. Now, that means we have a remaining table. You can see the cursor. So this is how this table is remaining now. In this we have to identify the most northwest corner cell. which is given by F1 W2. So here what has happened, after allocating 40 units to F1 W1, out of 50 units, 40 units are allocated and 10 units are remaining, which we have written here. And so since only 10 units are available, we cannot allocate more than that. So we are going to allocate on the basis of this northwest corner cell, we are allocating 10 units. So because we don't have more than 10, we have allocated 10 units. So now all the units supplied from F1 are exhausted. That means we cannot make any allocation to F1 W3 and F1 W4 because there are no units available. All the units available are allocated to F1 W1 and F1 W2. Now, after this is done, now we have here out of 35 units, 10 units are allocated. That means still 25 units are required. So now we have this table, only this, where you can see the cursor moving. This is the table in which you have to make allocation, because we cannot make allocation to F1 W3, F1 W4. Similarly, F2 W1, F3 W1. So in this, the most northwest corner cell, we have to see, that is F2 W2, where we have to allocate maximum possible number of units. Since the requirement at W2 is 35 units, out of which 10 were already allocated in F1 W2, so we still require 25 units. So, but availability, we have sufficient availability, 8 units are there. So we will allocate 25 units because only 25 are needed. And now we strike out this 25. That means the warehouse 2 is also satisfied because 10 plus 25 will give us 35. Then now this W1 column, W2 column also satisfied, so we cannot make any allocations there. F1 row is also completed because that is exhausted. Now we have only table here, F2 W3, F2 W4 and F3 W3, F3 W4. You can see this cursor moving along these cells, right? So in this is the most northwest corner cell. Now in this, after making allocation 25 units, 80 we will strike it off and put the remaining units, that is 55 units. So in this we have availability only 55 units. That means we cannot allocate more than the units available. Now since this is the most northwest corner cell, we will allocate all 55 units because we require 85 units. So then out of 85, 55 are satisfied. Now we require still 30 units. But here these 55 units are allocated, so it is also exhausted. Now we have only two cells, that is F3 W3, F3 W4, only two cells, because F1 is exhausted, F2 is exhausted, W1 is satisfied, W2 column is satisfied, W3 column is satisfied, W3 up to this. So here we require 30 units. So these are the only two cells that are available. So we will make required 60 units are available from factory 3. So we will allocate 30 units here. So these 30 is also satisfied. Now actually we have out of 60, 30 were allocated, 30 are remaining. And here only one cell is available. So we will make 30 units. So all 30 units are allocated here. and these 30 units are also satisfied. So now all the requirements are fulfilled. That means we needed 40 units at W1, 35 units at W2, 85 units at W3 and 30 units at W4. And units available was 50, 80, 60 at F1, F2, F3. So they are also exhausted. Now this is the allocation.